Hey everybody, welcome to Blue Collar Real Estate. I'm Greg Mayo.
And I'm Ryan Herget.
And hey, we got a lot to get into today, but before we do, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Today's show brought to you by Smitty's 24-hour dental clinic and Brazilian waxing spa. Because nothing takes your mind off a root canal like having a Brazilian wax done. Am I right, Ryan?
I couldn't agree.
So call to make an appointment or just walk in. You likely will not walk out. So what are we doing today?
I'm lost again. Like, how do I start from that? Every single time you get me, I'm like, and now I know it's coming, and I'm still lost.
That's why I don't tell you in advance.
So there we go. So Smitty's is good. Apparently, I've never been there, but I'm sure based on Greg's experience, it's phenomenal, right?
Yeah, no, it was great.
All right, so Greg, we're going to dive into one of your and my favorite subjects, and that is the role of the Realtor.
Yes, with an OR.
And what does the Realtor, as they say in our training, what do they actually do? Why does somebody in today's world actually even need a Realtor when they've got access to truly everything that we do from information perspective, from the standpoint of getting access to looking at homes or pulling up tax records? I mean, truly, everybody has access to everything that you and I do right now, right?
True.
So
it's available online easily, readily.
So why do they need you or I or anybody else that happens to be a Realtor with an OR?
Well, or a Realtor like I am.
Right.
If you try to talk to somebody that's doing a for sale by owner, what we call a FSBO, they'll tell you they don't need a realtor.
Sure.
Until you ask them the questions.
Which are what?
Okay. I talked to one over the weekend.
Yep.
And she said, well, I don't want to pay any kind of commission. And I'm like, okay, that's fine.
Of course. Who would want to pay a commission?
Who's doing your contracts?
Yep.
Who's going to handle the title work and making sure all that goes well? Who's going to communicate with the lender or your buyer? Because not everybody, and I'm sure you know the stat, Mr. Data Man, but not everybody's a cash buyer.
Nope.
Most people get a mortgage. And so we need to talk about, to me, they're two different things. There's buyer's agent and listing agent.
Absolutely. And I think that's really what we want to dissect here is really providing some transparency on if you're in the market to buy or sell a house or will be at any point in time in the next year or two, we want to give you some ideas on what questions do you need to be asking to make sure that you're getting somebody that this isn't their first rodeo, that knows how to navigate the process of both buying and selling a home. So that way you don't get caught with an unexpected surprise. And let me give you an example of an unexpected surprise. I'm helping out a gentleman right now, and he came to me. He was frustrated because he lost out on 2 houses working with another real estate agent and he's pissed. He's really frustrated. He actually got one offer accepted and it fell apart due to an inspection. But simply put, he's really, really frustrated, and his agent never took the time to explain to him what some of the additional out-of-pocket expenses were going to be. This gentleman's a first-time home buyer. He doesn't do this every day. He doesn't know that he's going to need to have $475 for an appraisal 2 weeks after his offer gets accepted. He didn't know that he needed to order a septic and a well inspection, which cost an extra $400 to make sure that nothing got missed there. Wouldn't it be helpful to know those kinds of things before you get started? So that way somebody's not coming up saying, yo, now we need another $500 that you weren't planning on. And those are simple, small little things, but so many real estate agents, unfortunately, try to skip to step 42, and they don't go through steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is all it takes to make sure somebody has a great experience buying and selling.
Because a lot of agents are like, hi, how you doing? Now let's go buy a house so I can get a commission check.
Right.
And there's a difference between, and we'll get into this some other time, but between sales and being a consultant.
Absolutely.
The way you and I see the world, we're consultants. We're trying to help people navigate this process. And also what I've learned in the past couple of years, there's first-time home buyers, like you're talking about, that have no idea. There's also second-time home buyers who were never taught right in the first place. And so their first home buying experience was utter chaos, right? Just running around putting out fires all the time. That's what it was for us when we bought our first house. And so they're going into it now, and they don't know either.
Yep.
So a buyer's agent, and you taught me this, you go and the biggest thing is to have a meeting, a sit-down, where you go over all the things that are going to be involved in this process before we start looking at houses.
Absolutely. And here's why that's important, because and here's literally what I would say to somebody sitting down, and that's, Greg, real quick, there's not a doubt in my mind, you're a smart man, there's not a doubt in my mind that you could hop in your truck right now and you could drive down to Manhattan, Times Square. You could drive there without a map and without a GPS, right?
Absolutely.
You could figure it out, okay? You could stop by enough gas stations and ask for directions. You know that it's that way. You just need to start heading that way. But without a GPS, without a map, there's a pretty good chance that you could end up in a bad part of Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
Or that you could end up somewhere that you don't want to be and having to pay for stuff that you don't want to pay for, right? Because you were not aware.
Not to mention wasting a bunch of time.
And that's it. But you could ultimately do it. And that's what buying and selling a home is without an experienced and educated real estate agent that's traveled that path many a time. Because I always like to say, it's my job. I'm your GPS. I'm here to help you get from where we are today to that Manhattan Times Square in the shortest amount of time possible, not hitting any roadblocks, not having any problems that we could have circumvented by simply just saying, okay, what steps need to happen? When do they need to happen? And what's my role? What's your role in that process?
All right. So with a buyer's agent, that's the job.
That's truly the job.
You sit down with them. You make sure they understand what expenses are coming up. The big thing in real estate, time is of the essence, right? So make sure we know we have to have inspections done at a certain time. We have to have appraisals done at a certain time. Communicating with their lender. Whether it's a lender you recommended or not, you have to have that open communication to understand.
It's imperative because when you're going through the process of buying a home here, okay, and if I ever hear another real estate agent say that's not my job, I want to punch them in the face because everything is your job. You assume all that responsibility. You can't assume that the lender has done this before. You can't assume that the other agent is knowledgeable about what's going on. You can't assume that that other agent is managing their client and all of the expectations and emotions on that side of the table. You can't assume that the appraiser is going to get it done on time. So you have to, as an agent, build checklist processes for every single thing that happens because here's the thing, buying and selling a home, although most people don't do it every year, I do, you do. And the same thing needs to happen every single time. There is a checklist. There's a process that needs to happen to ensure that you have a good experience. And when you're done, you're excited to go tell your friends and family about me. That's how I know I won. That's how I know I did a good job is you're exceedingly happy. You go write me a nice review if you want. And more importantly, you tell your friends and family because that's how that's how my job works. That's how our business works.
Right.
And I don't want to always be going out and trying to find somebody new when all I have to do is just take care of the people right in front of me.
Well, and that is how our business works. Not everybody knows a realtor. Not everybody knows a good one, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we kind of touched a little bit on buyer's agent. I want to come back to that in a minute, but let's talk about listing because that's a different job.
It's a completely different animal when you're putting a sign in the yard. And, you know, in the business of real estate, you know, there's a saying that you have to list to last. And I definitely agree with that. I laughed at that when I first heard it 20 years ago. But truly, if I don't have signs in yards, then my ability to help more and more people is diminished because if I'm working with a buyer, that just takes time. And I have to go show homes. I have to go through that process. Whereas with a listing, I can streamline that process a touch more. But here's the thing. If, you know, again, using the same analogy here, that person that has a house to sell, they have another place that they need to go, whether they're moving out of state, out of town, or just across the street. There's things that absolutely have to happen,
right?
Such as, well, we've got all of our money tied up in this house and we don't have enough down payment to get into the next house, but how do we use this money over here that's, you know, that we have in equity? It's helping people connect those dots. It's sharing stories and examples of other people that we've helped that have had the same hurdle and challenge that they have. Again, nothing's hard. It's just knowing here's all of my options that are available and just picking the one that's best for them based on their comfort, based on what they want to ultimately accomplish.
Well, and we also have to, and you touched on this a little bit, but help them navigate okay, if I sell my house and I'm buying another house, how do I do that?
That's the scariest part right now for a lot of people. You know, we're at the end of 2019 right now. We've been on a 7-year run of just an absolutely insane seller's market. And what that means to a buyer is you don't get to come in and offer $20,000 under asking price, and you probably don't have enough time to bring mom and dad back to look at it or anybody else because they've got 4 offers already or more in some cases. So buyers are feeling so much pressure, and sellers then in turn, there's give and take both ways, if that makes sense. Everybody has to work together to get to accomplish the end goal of everybody having a good experience.
And that's part of our job out there in the marketplace with other people in our job field. Absolutely. Is to build those reputations so that when they see an offer come through from Ryan Herget, they don't go, oh crap, not that guy.
Right.
You want them to go, I got 3 offers. One of them's from Ryan. Ryan's great to work with. And we should take that offer.
And here's the thing. For all real estate agents, this is me looking in the camera right now. Don't be an asshole. because exactly to your point right now, because nobody wins if you have to be the winner, if you have to put your chest out and say, I got this, I'm going to screw you over, or feeling like you have to win. That's not the case, because our interest, our job is to protect our clients, to make sure our clients have that experience, not to be the hero in that, in that journey. And so many agents feel that they have to be combative, they have to argue with you, or they have to just simply be right, when that's not the case. Because and I'm going to wrap up that thought real quick, but I can absolutely 100% tell you that when I had a property with 13 offers 3 weeks ago on it, we chose to go with an offer that was very competitive, not the highest, but I knew this agent knew what they were doing. Yep. And that was so important to my clients that we were not going to have a problem, because they were already moved into their other house. They didn't want to have to be making extra payments should something go wrong, and you certainly can't guarantee that. But when you have another competent professional on the other side of the table that's working with, in this case, the buyer, we chose to go with his offer simply because I know how he works. I know that he gets things done on time. I know that he's going to just do his job, which means we're going to have a great experience and everybody wins.
Which, to that point, every real estate transaction is a story, but
Absolutely.
Not every story has to have a villain.
Absolutely not.
Right. Now, last night, I met with a client, a pair of clients, a couple of clients that were a couple. Anyway, they had bought their first home with me about 3 years ago. They're in a hot neighborhood. Mm-hmm. They just need a bigger house.
Yeah.
And so I spent an hour and a half with them last night. And not only did we go over the listing process, because they've never sold a house before, but we also went over how do we organize closing 2 deals.
Absolutely. That's
and
scary
I told them,
for people.
I said, look, this is y'all's first time doing this. I do this all the time. People, like you said earlier, they sell a house, they got to have somewhere to go. Mm-hmm. And this is how we organize it, by communicating with the other agents, the one bringing the buyer to your house, the one listing the house we're going to, by communicating with title companies, by communicating with lenders. Real estate agents don't just sit around, drink coffee, and play golf.
No, at least I don't.
If we did, my golf game would be much, much better.
Mine usually goes downhill if golf's involved. Usually I'm the designated driver after 2 holes. I'm asked to leave and just have a beer and sit over there, Ryan.
I'm the guy that always says, hey, I'll pick up my ball whenever if I'm slowing you down. Because I'll have a good well, I don't want to get off on golf.
Yeah,
Anyway, but my point is, there's a whole lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Yep.
And you don't want to overwhelm your client with it, but by the same token, they need to understand what you're doing.
Absolutely. And, the old saying, you don't eat an elephant, all in one bite. It's small bites at a time. And, if you're selling your house, man, it's not just, hey, I'm going to put a sign in the yard, put it on the internet, and pray something magical happens. There's a lot more involved, especially if getting top dollar is your goal. And so many people, they spend their time looking for houses, and then once they find one, we got to get this house ready to sell now. Well, it's not there yet. And one of the simplest things you can do is, hey, we're at the end of 2019. If you want to move next spring, now is the time to start getting your house absolutely ready to go. So that way it's not a 3-week thrash with 49 trips to Lowe's and contractors that don't show up to get your house ready to go. You have time to do that, but that's all part of the process.
All right, so let's back up for a minute. Let me ask you something. Let's pretend for a minute I'm a home buyer. You're my agent.
Yeah.
I've never bought a house before.
Sure.
And I don't maybe ask a question, because a lot of times we don't ask questions because we assume we should know.
Well, and you also don't know what questions to ask.
Well,
right?
But here's one that's in my mind, and I learned the hard way that clients think about, but they won't ask you directly. Mm-hmm. I'm going to buy a house. You're going to help me. How do I pay you?
Good question. And I think that's something that's not talked about hardly at all in the business of real estate, and it absolutely should be, because what creates confusion and discomfort and unrest? When there's uncertainty, right? When you don't know. And if I sit here and have a conversation with you and tell you about all this awesome stuff I'm going to do to help you out, aren't you naturally waiting for the hook to fall? And that's all great, Ryan, but what's this going to cost me? So I think it's important, and I bring this up to everybody when we sit down for that first initial meeting, like what we talked about, because if I don't establish the rules of the game up front, you're going to be making up your own rules as you go, which means we've got a lot of chaos going on here. So when I sit down with somebody, that's one of the first 3 things I'm going to talk about with them as far as how does the process of real estate work, and here's how I do it. I'm going to say, Greg, let's pretend that right now you're driving down your favorite community and you see I'm going to make up a name here right now, but you see an EXP sign in the yard. And that EXP sign, what do you think that represents? Let's pretend that you call the agent with their sign in the yard. What does that sign represent? Because it represents 2 specific things. Tell me about that.
If I'm just a client driving around, I'm going to think that's the person that knows about the house.
Absolutely. And why wouldn't you, right? But here's the thing. That sign represents 2 very important things. Number one is it represents that agent has signed a legal contract with the owner of that home to represent their interest. And here's what that means.
Their interest.
Their interest, as in the seller's interest. So if somebody calls that agent, says, hey, what do you think the seller will take for this house? Me as an agent with a sign in the yard, the only thing I can legally say in that is, you know what, I'd encourage you to maybe write an offer and let's see what the sellers say. Because it's my job to do the other thing, which is help them get as much money for that house as they possibly can. So I have to represent their interests, which means not disclose anything that may negatively impact the negotiation or helping them get maximum value, and simply to help them get as much money. So let me turn this question around on you, and I do this every time. So if that agent is doing those 2 things for the seller, how at the same time can they help you as a buyer get the best deal and make sure that all of your interests are represented?
Well, and clearly the answer is they can't.
It's difficult. In Indiana, I don't know why. I'm actually very passionate about this. We've helped people on both sides of a transaction many times this year. I'm not a fan of it because I truly don't believe you can have the best interests of 2 people in the same situation. There's many states where it's outlawed and you can't do that. I don't know why in Indiana you still can, but nevertheless, that's the case. And so I have to bring that up to somebody up front, which then segues to your original question, which is how we get paid. Because part of that agreement is that when that agent put their sign in the yard, part of that agreement states that they're going to pay a real estate commission. That commission is going to be paid whether that agent helps both people or somebody else is helping that other person.
So both agents are paid by the person selling the house.
By the person selling the house.
I see a lot of buyers don't know that.
They don't know that. And because, again, nobody's teaching this stuff. And which is our goal with this show is to really provide that transparent look at how does this actually work? Because, and me as an agent, you know, you see this stuff on TV where, you know, oh, I'm getting 6% commission. That's not the case. That 6% commission, if that's the number, it can be more, it can be less, but that gets divided up amongst all parties involved.
Right.
Both agents representing both buyer and seller.
Okay, so we've kind of figured out, number one, if you're a real estate agent, don't be an asshat.
I agree completely.
To me, that's like the primary thing.
It's 100% not necessary to be that way. And how much further can you take a conversation by being nice and being genuine and being sincere versus just simply being an asshole? Because how are you going to respond if I immediately start attacking you and start name calling? I mean, I was dealing with an agent the other day that was name calling. Like, what are we doing here, dude?
Yeah.
This is so not necessary. Let's talk like grown-ups.
The last company that we both worked at, I got approached at one point about doing recruiting for our office. And the main thing I told the guy I was talking to on the phone, my higher up, was I will not hire an asshat. That's my one rule.
Yeah.
Either you're a team player or you're not. But beyond that, I just thought it was worth mentioning again.
It's truly the case. And you know, finding an agent that is committed to doing business the right way and asking them, you know, if somebody calls me, I've literally got a checklist of things that you need to ask whoever you're interviewing, because a lot of times people don't know. If people don't know how to buy your service, they immediately default to one known factor, which is who's the cheapest.
Right.
But we have to be able to educate people on what are we actually doing to make their life easier, better, and help them make more money.
And that's part of the listing presentation that you have. So we know what a listing agent does. We know what a buyer's agent does. But to jump into your world for a minute, let's say I've decided I want to go into a new home community and I walk into the model because I want to have a home built.
Absolutely.
They have a salesperson that is so eager to help me.
Absolutely.
So do I need you as a buyer's agent?
Well, here's my question is, how many sales do you as a buyer represent to that builder every year?
Just one.
Just one, right? So you probably represent one sale to that buyer or to that builder over the course of your lifetime. Maybe two if you love it and want to do it again, but generally just one, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing is I've been working with every single builder in town for almost 20 years now. Some have come and gone, but simply put, I work with every single builder in town multiple times every single year. So here's the thing. If I represent multiple sales to this builder, and I also have established relationships with, in most cases, most of upper management, doesn't that give me an opportunity to maybe help you out in a different way? And here's an example of what we just did. I just went through this. Actually, this is, it's almost a year ago right now. But there's a builder in town, and my clients, we went in, we met with the builder. They just loved the model home, right? Everything about it, they loved. All the options that the builder had put in, all the way down to the brick on the outside of the house. So we go in, we get everything selected, everything's going smooth the first 2 weeks. And then about a week before, they're having their pre-construction meeting, which is where you sit down with the builder, go over your plans, make sure everything's correct. Yeah. They're like, we need you to come back in because we can't get that brick that you wanted. I'm like, oh, shoot. Okay. So they're frustrated a little bit, right? But they're like, okay. So they go in, they select another brick, and then they go in and do their pre-construction meeting. And then another week passes, and Tony calls me. He's like, Ryan, I'm pissed at this point because they just told me again that now we can't get that brick either. And I'm like, all right, stop. Because we're 3 weeks into this process. These people are spending $258,000 on a brand new house. And now within 3-4 weeks, they're told twice, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that. Their confidence is low in the builder at this point, right? They're super low because, wow, we're not even started yet and this is already happening. Well, again, networking, this business is all about relationships just like any other one. I know the VP of sales over there, and I called him up and I'm like, Doug, I need some help. And I explained the story to him, what's going on. He's like, Ryan, give me 5 minutes. Made one phone call, calls me back. I think it was like called me back in 7 minutes. He's like, tell them whichever brick they want, we're going to get that for them.
Boom.
That's it.
Because you work for that buyer. You don't work for the builder.
Because I work for the buyer. It's my job to make sure that buyer gets what they need and it's a good experience. Somebody was just jerking their leg and they didn't know the difference, but simply put, that drove them to the point to where they wanted to get out of the deal. And this is a good builder here in town. I really enjoy working with him, but that's what they were getting dealt. So we just needed to make a phone call. And that's, again, why you leverage and build relationships around you, because you never know when you're going to need to make that phone call. And I could call that VP of sales. I've got his cell phone number, and he answered the phone when I called because I treat them with respect. I want them to have a good experience. I want them to be successful too. But at the end of the day, I need to make sure that my client is going to get exactly what they want because I'm going to be there for them in 3, 5, 7 years whenever they decide that they need another house.
And very importantly, and you skimmed over it a little bit, but you established a relationship with that builder long before
it happens.
Right.
That's the thing is you don't just call somebody and ask them for a favor when you don't know them. You call somebody and ask for a favor when they're your buddy. They're your friends. You've built and established a relationship already. So that's why going out and, again, doing business in my mind the right way and treating people with respect and dignity and helping them move their business forward too, it always pays dividends down the road.
And I had a client back in the spring that was trying to build a house. I won't say where, with what builder. But we were on a time crunch because when they had to be out of their house, right? Mm-hmm. And we sat down with the sales rep. We sat down with another rep from the builder. We were insured that, his words, unless we have a hurricane in Indiana, we'll be done by X date. All right, so 5.5 weeks after that, my client's driving through the neighborhood, and they said, hey, there's no foundation. There's nothing. There's some stakes in the ground. What do we do? So I drove down. Mm-hmm. It's a small neighborhood. What I noticed was that because I paid attention when I was in the neighborhood, because I'm used to being around builders and job sites and stuff, I noticed that there were 2 spec houses going up, and they hadn't started on my clients yet. So then that started a conversation with the builder. Why are we building inventory homes and not my clients yet? My client needs their house done by this date. And we went through this whole thing. Well, that was a week and a half of fighting with these people before I finally got it out of them. They're build the spec houses first.
Yeah.
My client pulled out. We found him another home. Everybody was happy, but my client wouldn't have known that. They don't know what the process looks like, no. I guess is my point. They don't understand how long it takes to build a house.
No.
Now they were savvy enough to go, hey, there's no foundation. This might be a problem.
Right. Right. Well, and that process is slightly different with every builder, but ultimately it comes down to doing that homework before you need to do the homework. And I mean, every week I'm driving out, I'm visiting new home models, I'm building relationships with the new home counselors out there, with their bosses, because I need to know that if and when there's a problem I need to solve.
Right.
So it's just all about doing that proactively. And that's what good real estate agents, in my opinion, do, is they're learning what problems do I need to solve before it becomes an actual problem. And they're building up that repertoire. They're building up that network of people that are going to be able to help successfully navigate for their clients.
Because, if there's a problem, you'll solve it.
I'll solve it.
Check out the hook while Jason revolves it. Jason's a producer. He doesn't say much. Anyway, so we've kind of gone over who pays the agent, what a listing agent does, what a buyer agent does, what happens when you're going to build a new house. Obviously, we spent several episodes already talking about remodeling, but let's talk about something else. I want to throw something else at you.
Okay.
Let's say I'm out looking at homes as a buyer, and I'm on Zillow or Trulia or Realtor.com, whatever.
Any of them.
None of them are sponsors of the show. But let's say I'm looking online and I see a house and I send it to you. Now, if it's me as the agent, the first thing I do is try to pull it up in MyBore.
Sure.
I'm going to see way more data and information than is on Zillow. But I don't see it. So I go to Zillow. I find out it's a for sale by owner.
Absolutely.
You're my agent. I call you up and I say, Ryan, I found this house and it's for sale by owner. How do I get in to see it? How do you respond to that?
I'm going to call that owner and have a conversation with them. I'm going to ask them a couple questions about where they're at. How's it going so far? What, do you have any offers on this? And I do have a client that legitimately wants to see your house. If they're interested in buying it, would you be open to paying me a real estate commission? That's it. That's my conversation with them.
Easy money.
And if in most cases they are, okay, they're not trying to pay the full both sides of a real estate commission, which I also respect. Hell, I'd do the same thing if I didn't have my real estate license. However, there's also a lot that goes into that. There's a lot that, when you're selling your home for sale by owner, as you alluded to earlier in the process, that I find when I'm helping somebody purchase a for sale by owner home, I'm doing both sides of that oftentimes. There was one case I actually have been trying to get this lady to get her license. She was so awesome. It was last fall. She did a great job. I mean, I'm like, truly, you're better than most real estate agents I work with, just on top of her game, just did it right. But simply put, it was, most cases I'm helping that seller as well. And so I'm picking up a little extra workload or answering questions that they have or making sure that they sent the contract to the buyer's lender, to the title company, or, that we're getting their mortgage payoff authorization form back in time. So we're not waiting on that the day before closing. All the things that are on the checklist that you have to go through. You need to make sure that seller is aware of it as well. Another thing I've done as well, and this is becoming more and more common, I'm not opposed to this at all, but if that seller is maybe not in an equity position to sell their house, I had this happen again this past spring as well, but they didn't have the equity to pay a commission and do anything. They were moving out of state, and that's part of why they were selling it for sale by owner. And my clients, they had been through the process before as well, and so I simply said, I've got this in one of my business plans is I will help you for a set fee, make sure that all the I's get dotted, all the T's get crossed, so that way everybody wins in this situation. And here's the cool part. Those people that were selling their house for sale by owner, they've already referred 2 people to me that I'm helping with homes right now.
Because you did your job and helped them.
Because I wanted to provide value to them. And that value didn't have to mean me making $9,000 in a commission. It was just me making substantially less than that, but also helping connect some dots for some people. And now everybody's happy and they all love me. Not because I'm awesome, but because I was able to really provide value, and they saw that it had their interest first.
And the key to that, and this is the last thing I want to share, we probably should wrap up here in a minute, because you and I could talk about this for hours.
Yep.
But I don't know that people could listen for hours. And I guess that's the last thing I want to key on. And, of course, and I'm talking to you right now. Ryan and I would love to help you buy or sell a house, of course. But we're real estate agents. That's literally what we do. But whatever agent you use, I just want to leave anybody watching, listening with this one key, and that is find somebody that has the heart of a teacher and a true servant mentality.
Absolutely.
If you feel like you're being pushed because they really want you to close on a house so they can get their commission, that's not the right guy or gal for you. You want somebody who is going to look out for your needs first, not their needs first.
Well, and I think it's important, and nothing against newer agents, because we all have to learn somewhere, right?
Right.
But when you're working with somebody, ask them, what are they doing to educate themselves? Ask them, tell me about the last time you helped somebody with a new house. How did you help that buyer successfully navigate the process? It's okay to ask questions to understand, do they know how to do their job? And if they don't, are they willing to learn? Again, I love helping new real estate agents get going, and it's impossible to know it all. Hell, I still don't know a fraction of what I could or should. However, is that person willing to learn? I think being teachable and being able to be a good teacher is pivotal to being a good real estate agent and really helping ease the burden of frustration that people experience when they're just getting rushed through a process that they're unfamiliar with.
Teachable, coachable, and trainable.
That's it. That's it.
Again, I'd love to dig in and just keep going forever, but we should probably wrap up.
No, I think that's about it. So the big keys, again, make sure that you are finding the right real estate agent, that you are asking them the questions that Greg's talked about here, so you have the experience that you want when you're buying and selling a home. It's not difficult. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be. However, make sure that you take the time to find the right real estate agent. If you have any questions on that, Greg and I are here more than happy to help. And I think that's all we've got for this episode.
And the last thing I want to say, if you're a real estate agent and you think, I don't know a lot of this stuff, where do I learn it? Contact one of us. We would both love the opportunity to show you what we know and maybe learn some stuff from you too. So
that's what it's about. Teamwork makes the dream work.
So again, let me remind you, subscribe, rate, and review.
Get it done.
I don't know why that makes me laugh every time I say it, but nonetheless, that's what you need to do. And for now, for Blue Collar Real Estate, I'm Greg Mayo.
And I'm Ryan Herget. Thanks so much.
Have a great day.